So first, before we start anything, I want to read a land acknowledgement. We recognize that the land we stand on is the traditional unsurrendered territory of the Abenaki people, one of the 5 Abenaki nations who had a continual and enduring presence here in Vermont since time immemorial. Okay, so now that we've covered that, I would sort of like to talk about how this is going to go. Sort of the rules, I guess, for the conversation, or just for the meeting in general. So first off, I want to thank everyone for tuning in and thank our panelists as well. We're going to start off with the panelists giving a short introduction. I will introduce each of them before they speak, just give a short blurb about who the artist is and the work that they do. And then each panelist will have 3 minutes to give their own introduction. After that is done, I am going to open it up to everyone else who has joined. We're going to be using a stack system, which means that people will notify me that they have something to say by typing the word hand, H-A-N-D, in the comment section. And then I will write your name down, and we will go in order from the first person who comments down to the last. So each person will have 2 minutes to sort of say what they want to say. And we have these time constraints just because we want to make sure everyone gets a chance to talk. And so I will be alerting people at 1 minute and 2 minutes. So just once I say the 2, it's not like a hard cutoff, but please try to wrap up after your 2 minute mark. And if you don't get everything out that you wanted to say, you can be placed back on the stack. But just know that you will, I mean, this is just for organizational purposes, and so everyone gets a chance to speak. All right, so we'll start with the introduction for Rik. Rik is a singer, musician, producer, and author. Rik has been using his art to promote peace and understanding in concerts throughout the world. He carries the flame of old traditions while inspiring a younger generation with his stories and songs of the human condition. Rik is the author of the book The Road is My Mistress and his new book Banjo Man of an American Folk Singer. Is the producer of an award-winning television program, The Songwriter's Notebook, which is archived by the American Folklife Center at the Library of Congress. He also is featured on the Grammy-nominated album Singing Through the Hard Times, a tribute to Utah Phillips. So Rik, if you could do your 3 minutes.
Sure. Well, I think that the main thing is, that I didn't really want to do video. I didn't want to do interviews. I didn't want to do, it was the thing where I thought somebody should do it, but I didn't think it should be me. But, sometimes you have to step up when things appear that, well, the job's not getting done. And so I kind of went to VCAM television with this idea of doing the TV show, The Songwriter's Notebook. So that was 21 years ago. And so we've been broadcasting since then. And it's been really an adventure because I didn't know anything about, doing video, and they taught me what I needed to know for free. And that was really important. Just because you wanted to learn, you could go in there and they gave you the tools and they would give you what you needed at that time. So if all you needed to do was walk into a studio and produce a show, well, you could do that. But if you wanted to learn how to do more editing, you could learn how to do that. If you wanted to start creating your own shows, you could learn how to do that. So I kind of went through that process. And early on, I guess it must have been about 3 years ago, I was sitting around with, remember when we had the blackouts where nobody had electricity? It was about two and a half years ago. and there was no electricity. And I was sitting with my friend Mitch Barron, and I said, you know, we got to do something different. You know, and I said, I don't want to do a festival. I said, what I want to do is do like a kind of a concert where people could tune in from all over the world and we could highlight Vermont musicians. And my friend said, well, how are you going to do that? And then I started kind of brainstorming. And that's when we came up with the idea of the Great Vermont Barn Dance Show. And so the idea of that was a live stream. And that was a long time ago. And there were a lot of mistakes made. And that's okay. I think that all of us as artists, we have to be willing to go and try to figure out how things work and which things don't work. And in live streaming in particular, you don't know what's going to happen. It's sort of like the early days of live TV where anything can happen. I mean, how many times you've been watching somebody do a live stream and then all of a sudden it just disappears, or, you know, or a multitude of problems. So that's sort of where, you know, I've been coming at it, and I've been trying different things, just like most of you. One of the interesting things that I found was BeLive TV. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. BeLive is a streaming that gives you a lot of interesting options. I first saw it, there was a festival going on in Hawaii. I think it was Hawaii. I think it was Hawaii. And they had, you know, all kinds of different boxes with different things going on. And they could bring in this person and they would highlight that person and they could go. I was like amazed by it. And then I did a little bit of research and I found out that that's probably what they were using as BeLive TV. So here's the idea with it, is that there's two different things. One is you get 14 days free with all the bells and whistles. So you can play with it for 14 days. And then if you decide not to take the big package, you know, which I think was like, I don't know, $20 a month or something, you still have the free version that doesn't cost you anything. What that did for me was enabled me to interview people from all over the world for the first time with, you know, with two screens. And not only, you know, have two screens, but actually be able to take photographs or videos and play it in that screen while you're talking. So you could really have this kind of multimedia thing going on. So if you're really interested, you should just check it out because it's pretty cool. You know, especially with, you know, when you get the 14 days, use it as much as possible. You know, make live streams almost every day. I did one interview where I interviewed two people from England who were interested in guitars. One was basically a guitar maker, and the other was a guitar enthusiast for a very unusual guitar. And it was so cool because I always had the dream of doing this interview with these guys, but I said, when am I gonna get to England? And, you know, and then those guys didn't live near each other. And this was the perfect way to do it. Then I was able to do another thing where I was able to get somebody from Italy, one from Ireland, and one from Beacon, New York, and myself, all on the same screen together. Sort of like, you know, similar to the way that we are now, but you had that option of putting in videos, you had the option of putting in photographs, and it makes it a really interesting thing. So I would really suggest, you know, give it a try, BeLive TV, and see if you like that. I think that as Sal is talked about earlier, we are moving into a different time. We don't know how long it's going to be before we're able to do what we did before. We really don't. I mean, I'd like to think, I mean, just like Sal's wife, I lost all the gigs. I had a big tour in Europe that I worked a half a year to put together, gone. I have all these requests overseas that I can't honor. But if we learn how to use the live stream it might be the ticket. I'm starting to get offers from different universities to do some live streaming in the classroom, and they'll pay you to do that. I mean, I think that the big thing that we as artists and musicians have to think about is how are we going to actually make money from the live streams? Because at this point, a lot of this we're doing out of the kindness of our heart because we want to share our music. Sometimes it's just because that's what we have to do as artists. We just want to get our music out there. So we're creating all of these live streams, and maybe there's as Sal was saying, a live stream overkill where there's just so many that people are just getting zoned out on it. But that's sort of like what I have to offer. I do things very simply. I use what, just like Sarah, it's whatever you can work with. I'm not going to go out and spend a ton of money, especially when we can't figure out how we're going to get paid back for this yet. So it's like, use the tools that we have. It is good to have a good microphone. I totally agree. And there are a lot of inexpensive microphones that you can get. The blue microphones, the snowball microphones, very, good quality, inexpensive. I have a blue Spark over here, a digital Spark that I use for some things. And I have the ear trumpet that I use for other things. But I'm just like all of you. I'm just learning. I'm learning all the time. I'm watching what people are doing. I'm trying to figure out what things might work for me and how to do what I'm doing better, but I can't really invest heavily in it. I have to use the tools that are available. Is that about right?
Yeah, so I sent something in the chat just now. I sort of dropped the 3-minute rule since there aren't many people on. So just, yeah, everyone just take as much time as you need. And thank you all again for being here. Rick, do you have anything else that you'd like to say?
I'm just here to learn. I want to hear what you're doing. I want to hear the things. I want to hear the successes and the failures, because the failures are just as important of the things that didn't work, the things that went really bad, and how you worked it out. Because that's what we need to do. Is like yesterday I was doing this live stream, and for some reason, the computer just died. But I was on the radiator, so it was like, what am I going to do? So I had my phone. I turned my phone on. Of course, I lost all of the quality that I had set up, the lighting and everything. Everything was gone. But what was the important thing is the show went on. That's the when it comes down to the really important thing. And I think that, Sal, you're correct in some ways about if the sound isn't good, people are not going to listen unless it's important. If it's important, if you really have something valuable, people are going to listen. There is no doubt about it. You look on television and you see the crappiest videos that would have never been tolerated, because they caught the moment. All of us are potential journalists. We all have the power in our pocket, unlike anything that we ever could have imagined in the past. Where, to think of the idea that you could broadcast yourself all over the world 10 years ago, no way. For free? So we don't know what the future is going to be. And there's another thing that I just heard about. I don't know much about it. Maybe some of you heard about it. Is Jamkaz? What was it called?
Jamikazam.
Yeah, Jamikazam, where they say that you can actually in real time be able to play with other musicians if you can't get together. So if anybody's used that, I want to hear about it.
It's not working that well yet.
Thank you, Rick, for your insight. We really appreciate it. Next, we're going to go to Sarah. Having any type of feeling, Sarah King's got a song for that. She's here to let you know you're not alone. Sarah sings about hard times because she's lived through some hard times, and you're probably listening because you have too. A quote from 7 Days Vermont is, King has a powerful voice capable of warm, smooth tones as well as gravelly blues howls. She sings with the confidence of a woman who knows she can belt out a tune. So Sarah, go ahead and tell us about your experience.
Cool. Yeah, so I'd never live streamed at all before quarantine, coronavirus, everything happened. I didn't have any equipment. I knew there were like iRig streams and stuff like that out there, but I didn't have any. My first live stream, I had every computer in my house and my phone all set up, and I was streaming just via the webcam, via the computer sound, via the phone sound, with my ripped-in internet with 1 Mbps upload speed. And it was awful. Everything was awful. The setting was terrible. The sound was terrible. The light was terrible. And like all the devices started like stopping because they couldn't handle all the bandwidth. But I kept going, and each week I learned something new, and that I think made all the difference. You know, if I start today, I'm 1 day ahead of tomorrow. And so I was streaming like 3 times a week at first, and then I figured out that I could plug my amp into my computer and use my amp sound. And so I didn't have to go buy like a streaming rig or something like that, because, oh yeah, we don't have any gigs, so we aren't making any money now. So I wasn't about to go spend a whole bunch of money on something that I couldn't afford, and also wasn't going to help with my garbage internet. So I run my standard, the amp that I actually use to perform, which I run my vocal mic and my guitar through. And I plug that into my one laptop, and I only stream on one platform at a time through my computer now, because the internet can't handle both. For my phone, I didn't grab the microphone, but I do have a little Shure MV88 that plugs into the phone, and that's got a pretty solid sound as well. So that's what I use when I stream on Instagram Live. And I can usually do both at the same time if I use an encoder. So that's something else I had never used before, was using software to actually run the stream. And so that actually helped with my low bandwidth, being able to run the stream through an encoder and crank the picture down, like reduce the quality of the video, but I was actually able to upgrade the quality of the audio and make that work. So that has been what I've been doing for the last few weeks, is using my encoder, using my microphone through my phone, and streaming that way. So the one thing with the OBS that I've been using is open broadcast software, is that I can only stream to one service at a time. So I've been streaming on Facebook because people have been more engaged with Facebook. I wanted to do YouTube, but I was still running into audio issues with YouTube. I may go back to YouTube at some point, but for now it's just been Facebook and Instagram. A couple of higher profile streaming gigs that I've had, I've actually gone up to Burlington and streamed from Robot Dog's studio, where they have all kinds of cool stuff going on that that I don't have. So they've got like screen overlays and stuff, and it really helps to have somebody in the other room like sharing while you're playing live and like pushing everything out. And the overlays are good because Facebook doesn't like links. So if you want to link to your tip jar, Facebook doesn't like that. But if there's just an overlay on your video, Facebook doesn't care. And so, so that's been helpful. For a while, I was even borrowing Wi-Fi from a friend who has fiber internet just to get a steadier stream. But once I started using the encoder, that seemed to work okay. So that's been my my general experience with it. I asked somebody at one point, like, what do I do with, you know, if this goes on for a long time and this is how people get introduced to me, and this is, I have terrible internet. And he said, call your realtor. And I'm not about to sell my house because of coronavirus. I mean, you know, you can only see a little bit, but like I stream from here on the porch. It's cute. But it's definitely been a learning curve. The plus sides is that like I've moved around a lot, and being able to bring my show to Georgia, to New York, to all these places that that I used to live, and having all my friends tune in and be like, oh, it's so good to like hear you. That's been pretty rad. Because I don't, you know, again, I live in Ripton, there's 500 people here. I don't necessarily have like a huge draw in Vermont, but if we could get like all my fans everywhere together, like I'd have a pretty solid viewership. My videos average between 200 to 600 views, but a few of them have gone to like 2,000 to 4,000 views, which has been clearly much larger than anything that I could do in person here in Vermont. So that's been awesome. So yeah, that's been it. And I'm clearly also not using my microphone and my amp right now. So if things are really wonky, that's why. And so, you know, even just guess how it must have sounded when I was trying to just play and sing and hollering at my computer and stuff. And yeah, but you live and learn. And I'm glad that I pushed go those first few times and learned from it. So yeah, that's my story.
Thank you, Sarah. We'll move on to Craig now. With over 30 years behind the decks, Craig has served as a resident at New York City's legendary Tunnel and Limelight nightclubs, and has played many of the country's most celebrated venues and club nights, while also doing his thing for international crowds all over the United States, Canada, the Dominican Republic, and Jamaica. He enjoyed residencies at Rise in Boston and Twist in Miami, but focuses on his more open format weeklies in Burlington these days as a break from travel and production. He is currently a teacher at Burlington's famed Flynn Theater and has retooled his one-man show focused on diversity, Do Unto Others, featuring music by Jeffrey Gaines and more. One experience with Craig behind the tables, on the air, and/or performing live with his award-winning Prince tribute band Purple, while dancing continuously on stage or in the booth, spreading his one love mantra through the music each night. And you'll understand why his shows are so well attended and received. So go ahead, Craig. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Craig. And like Rick and Sarah, before this, I had no intention of live streaming. Well, Rick, a lot longer before, but it just was something that was not on my radar. Not something I ever thought I wanted to do or had to do. And I'm an introvert, so I have to force myself to enjoy being in front of a crowd. And one more thing to think about is really confusing for me. But then the coronavirus came along, and I had to figure it out. I was sitting in my apartment, and I was watching Garth Brooks live from his basement taking requests from Studio G. And I'm a huge Garth Brooks fan, so I was very excited. Also still trying to figure out, okay, how can I connect with folks, and also how am I going to eat during this whole thing? I made a bunch of requests with Garth. He did not take my request. I kept requesting the same song over and over and over again. CBS decided to air that him and Trisha Yearwood from the house the following Wednesday, I'm sorry. So before the show, they're in their basement and they're doing their thing, they're practicing, getting ready for the show to start. And I'm still, come on, please play my song, play my song, play my song. No one else was requesting the song that night, nor the week before. One of my claims to fame in my life is that he started off the show telling Trisha, hold on 1 second, lucky fan, here you go. And he plays the song and he goes, there you are, finally I played your song for you. So yeah. And I'm glad that he keeps doing it. And back to what Rick was saying, sound quality, video quality, if it's something that's important to you, if there's something that speaks to you that you enjoy, you will find a way around it, because it could be the best, video and audio quality, but if it's something that doesn't connect you to your crowd or connect with you, period, it's not worth it. I was very lucky that the day after that Garth Brooks special, I got a text from a friend and said, so I have this guy that runs Recovery Vermont. and it's a recovering addicts organization. And they would normally take out their clients to go dancing on Fridays and Saturday nights. They can't do that now. And they have grant money that they have to spend on entertainment. That's the only thing they can use it for. So he has to pay you, and I think this is a good thing for you. So I talked to the guy. We talked about it. It was great. Later that afternoon, I got a phone call from Pride Center of Vermont, and they offered me the same thing. We have to spend this money. We got to do our thing. And luckily, between those two streams and a few other things that has sort of kept me floating. The first time I did Recovery Vermont, I had no idea what I was doing. I was just so excited to get it done and make noise somehow. And so I went through my phone, and they had a Zoom link that they sent me. And I opened up Zoom, and I did everything through Zoom and using my phone microphone for that. Not realizing that Zoom is not great for music, or at least not for loud DJ music. But as far as I could tell, everyone was dancing. Everyone was having a great time. Well, it turns out they were just really excited that I was there and that someone was playing music for them because it sucked. It was horrible. And I didn't realize how bad it was until we did a test the following week. And with the organizers, and they're like, Craig, we got to figure this out. We got to figure this out. And even though I did that show, we're all still trying to adjust things the whole time. And then I got in touch with Big Heavy World. And I said, Jim, I need help with this thing. I have no idea what this is all about. I need help. I'm not a tech dude. I don't have the stuff. Not sure I even have the cash right now to go out and buy all the stuff I need. Is it possible that I can do these 2 streams from your space where you have the lighting, you have the streaming set up, and smoke machines and lasers, etc. So now those 2 weekly streams go through Mixcloud, which took some trial and error. We kept getting kicked off of Facebook because of the open format copyright thing. Unless it's super obscure, and even then, they'll just shut off your stream. Same thing with YouTube. We got banned in most countries several times. And now we're using Mixcloud exclusively. Twitch has now started with the copyright issues. And it seems that Mixcloud is the only site that is paid for ASCAP, Songtrust, and BMI. So you're clean there if you happen to be playing stuff that's other people's music or have other music in the background. And that's worked really well, except on Sundays, I do still use my phone and use Facebook Live, and I just, restart the stream every 15 minutes or 20 minutes or so, or I do a gospel dance music set for 2 hours for those folks that are missing their church homes and their church families. I'm not a religious guy, but for me, it's all about, as a musician, as a DJ, if we're not all on the same page and lifting each other up, what's the point of doing what we do? So I want to be there for those folks, and it seems to be working. So that's my story so far.
Thank you, Craig. Next, we'll go to Kane, who has a very, very short intro. Kane, known as Bishop LeVay, is a doom folk songwriter out of Waterbury, currently hosting Isolation Sessions, a live stream and radio show on The Radiator. Kane, please tell us a bit about your experience.
So I do keep the intros brief because usually, when you start saying things like doom folk, people tend to listen. So essentially, I switched pretty fast over to live streams from doing shows, 3 times a week, because a buddy of mine, Thomas Gunn, who's another performer, was doing this live stream festival, and I was like, you know what, I'll get on board with that. They're doing it for charity. And so we did it, and I was like, well, this is, and even if the money was for charity, I saw the dollars racking up, and I was like, oh, okay, well, we could do this on a much smaller scale on the individual level for artists and make a little bit of the money back that you're losing. Turns out it's not exactly true. So I did my first live stream on Facebook by myself and on OBS, and my video quality was so bad that people just stopped watching it. And I just told people to switch over to Instagram. I just had Instagram Live rolling just for shits and giggles, and most people switched over there. And then Jim hit me up and was like, "Do you want to host a show?" And I said, "Yeah." So I've been doing that. My experience overall with live streaming is actually, it kind of sucks. It's a terrible, like, I'm on stage and I move around and I'm screaming into microphones and I get crowd reaction. That's sort of my whole gimmick. You know, everyone's got a gimmick. So essentially having to stare into cameras and, you know, not facing your crowd, it really sucks. And there's a light at the end of the tunnel because Stowe Cider is doing shows. They're picking shows back up. I think Haley Jane is doing a show at Stowe Cider soon. And they're doing, like, it's small crowds. It's like 25 people only, and they have to be 6 feet apart or whatever. But they're starting shows up again. So I think we're looking at live streams dying out in the next few months as people step up shows. They're not going to be as big as we'd hope them to be, you know. Or in some cases, like with me, where my crowds are only usually 10, 15 people, maybe it'll be better because people have just been missing shows. The big problem is going to be the same problem we've been having with live streams, where these massive acts like Garth Brooks or even Metallica have been doing live streams, and that's pulling the viewers, like, and they don't need to make the money, you know, like the small time artists do, but they're, you know, they want to play live too. They're musicians as well, and they're pulling all the views that way, you know, toward them on days that, you know, all these other musicians are streaming. And another problem you're running into is, I think, too many musicians streaming at the same time. But as we move back into playing shows, we're going to run into a massive problem where there is not enough, like, calendars are just going to be booked. These small-time artists like me or, you know, Thomas Gunn or any of the crowd in the scene that I'm a part of, there's not going to be enough room on calendars for smaller artists. And they're going to have to keep live streaming. And I don't know if that's beneficial to them or not. That's a major concern of mine, is that small-time artists, people who haven't necessarily been heard yet, are going to get pushed out because the venues aren't going to have enough time to host as many people as they used to. But my experience overall, you know, with live streaming has been positive for the most part. Higher Grounds stream is awesome. I did Robot Dog up in Burlington a few weeks ago. They're pretty cool. I don't really have a whole lot more to say on the subject other than I do see light at the end of the tunnel. We are going to start the shows are going to start happening again very soon. That's all I got.
Thanks, Kane. Our last panelist is Sal. Sal DeFrancesco. Did I say that right, Sal?
Close enough.
Close enough? All right. Sal's immersion into streaming is a direct result of the pandemic. After managing all things, including audio, tech, gear, and wrangling for his musician wife's unexpected career, when COVID-19 shut down music, Sal stepped up to video, live streaming, and video recordings. Sal joins us this evening from his home in Williston, Vermont. Take it away, Sal.
Hi. So some of that is almost true. I also am a talent buyer or booking agent for a couple of, well, last year I had 5 different places I booked. This year it's down to 2, possibly 3, but I'm actually booking right now for a couple of places. They're small in northern Vermont. One's in Grand Isle, actually North Hero, and one is in St. Albans. But they are starting out with talent. And we've been doing it. One of them has been having musicians for about 2 weeks so far. I'd like to address the idea that live streaming might be temporary. I'm not sure it's going to be. I think if you look at everybody that's doing it on Twitch and through YouTube, and you see the leading people that are doing it, they're making a lot of money. I'm not talking about musicians, but they're making a lot of money doing nothing but live streaming and videos. And I think this is kind of the way it's going to go in the future. We still haven't hit the awfulness of the second wave, which will be definitely coming this summer. And I think we're going to see venues open up, and I think then we're going to see them shut down. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think I'm wrong. But I do think that if you treat live streaming as a temporary issue or a temporary fix, I think it's a mistake. I think there'll be some people that are going to make it something that's more regular. And so I come from more of the technical side. My wife, I think I've mentioned to most of you, but who haven't heard it, she does a lot of senior homes. She started actually playing out when she was 61 years old. And she has a very busy schedule up until when COVID-19 hit. And she went down from, I don't know, 460 or 470 gigs a year to, well, she's doing about 10 or 12 a month now. So, so we looked at live streaming, but before that, we were actually looking at producing kind of a specialized TV station. So I actually have been looking at the live streaming thing for about a year. But in March, I started to get more and more into it. And I started to look at musicians. Again, I'm not a musician. I like to cook, but that's my art. That's as far as my artistry goes. I looked at a lot of what people were doing for live streams. And although I understand that people will accept, I had notes on this, people will accept lesser quality. I think as things progress, and keep in mind, we've been in this situation less than 3 months, or about 3 months. But as things keeps going, people are going to become more discerning. And if you look at listeners, there's two kinds of listeners. There's contact listeners and there's critical listeners. And what I mean by that is contact listeners are basically people that if they like the song, they're going to listen to it no matter how bad it is. And I don't mean performance. I mean the way they see it. And then there's critical listeners that are really looking for the quality of the experience. And if you want to look at me as a resource, as to help you increase the quality of your experience, please contact me anytime. I did a couple of numbers to look at like video streaming. So if you want to stream it, like if you have a bit rate of like 2 to 3.8 or like 2 to 4, you can only do about 480p. But if you can get up to about 5.5 to 7.5, you can start to do 1080p. And so it depends on what your upload speeds are. And I was going to address, I had it in my notes somewhere. If you have, for example, just a minute. If you have a low bandwidth, you know, sometimes you can go to your provider and ask them to increase, to take people off your line, like your trunk line, to give you more bandwidth. And sometimes if you request more bandwidth, sometimes they'll give it to you, and if you can double it, then you can do a lot more. To put this in perspective, what you're seeing, what I'm using right now is a mirrorless camera. It's called an A6000. I'm running it through a capture card, and I'm running the audio through an audio interface. And basically, it's a Focusrite. So I'm assuming that most musicians know these days that is streaming knows what an audio interface is. Yeah, it's basically just taking your analog signal and turning it to digital for your computer. And I'm also, so the software I'm using today, just to put this in perspective, is I'm using software, but I have written notes that I can't possibly read. So I'm using XSplit as the encoder. And it allows me to change scenes. So for example, I can change to different cameras. And I can even play a video, which I just put on by mistake. And I'll take that off. This allows me to get a little bit more interest. And so you understand, I'm using an iPhone, an iPad, and a mirrorless camera as and the webcam as the sources for this. Like I said, my focus is mostly on hardware and software. My wife does all the singing and playing, and I basically am behind the scenes trying to get it so it works the way it's supposed to work. Like I said, the big thing that I just want to mention again is that it's very important to understand that I think that this is a new thing, yes, but I don't think it's going to go away just because you start playing live shows. I think there's going to be more and more people watching online. And so if you look towards the future and start think of improving that experience, you'll be kind of ahead of everybody else and possibly make that as part of another income stream for you. And that's about all I have to say.
Thank you, Sal. So that's the last panelist that we have. So I figure I'll just open it up to, I mean, we don't have many participants currently.
It's just us
so,
chickens.
But, oh, well, we do have some on Facebook, that's true. So yeah, feel free, anyone who wants to chime in or ask a question, you all have the floor.
So if I can jump in really quickly and add to what Sal was saying, I too believe that there's going to be streaming from now on. It may not be as popular, which will take care of some of the congestion that's happening. But a couple of things. One, I just did up with Big Heavy World and VPR a statewide virtual prom, and we were able to have a collective party for people all over the state and all over the world. And our streaming engine is Mixcloud, and Mixcloud is during the broadcast we were at number 4 in the world of as far as trending. So people were listening, people were excited about it. But again, we probably got to a bunch of folks that wouldn't normally sit and watch that type of thing because they can't get to it. The other piece of that, I'm putting together a prom for Camp Tecumseh. And Camp Tecumseh is for young folks who are dealing with cancer. And we realized that even if there wasn't the pandemic, there would still be kids that can't go to camp because they're homebound. Here's a chance for, even if we do have in-person dances at Camp Tecumseh, here's a chance for those kids at home to feel like they're a part of it. So I think you're right, Sal. I think it is here to stay. It's going to get a little different, and it's going to be in conjunction with the live sets, I think, as well. But everyone can come to the party as opposed to just a few.
Yeah, I agree. If I might make a point about bandwidth, I was going to mention this. If you haven't checked with your providers in the last year or say even 6 months, chances are what you're paying for and what's available aren't the same thing. It's pretty usual for your provider to not tell you about any of the upgrades, even though you're paying more than what a similar upgrade might be. I did that in March and found out that not only was I paying about $20 or $30 a month more, but I got 3 times the download speed for basically the same price. And so a lot of times it's a good idea to just to talk to your provider and say, hey, look, what can I do to get more? And I was going to address this with Sarah. Since you have a DSL connection and you're in a local, you have a small company that you're dealing with, you should really, have you talked to them?
Yeah, I'm not with a local company. I'm with Consolidated, and they are awful. They're terrible. There's actually some press going on right now. They've been targeted by the Better Business Bureau, and there are journalists coming in to talk to people.
Read about that.
Yeah, so it's I'm at their mercy, unfortunately.
The town of Waterbury collectively banned that company.
Oh,
yeah, I heard that.
Man, yeah, I wish I wish they would, but I wish they wouldn't. Like, if we could get like Comcast, that would be great. But Comcast, since I'm in the mountains, it ends at the foot of the mountain. They said they couldn't run it up the mountain, and that was the problem.
Well, they could. They just don't want to spend the money.
Exactly.
You can double your trunk line. I mean, it'd be double the cost, but you could double it up and run it into a single router, and that would give you more speed. Plus, it would give you, if they ran them parallel, it would give you the ability, like if one starts to crap out, the other one would take up the slack. and you get
One of
less.
our neighbors said that he did that, but it didn't increase his upload. It only increased his download. So we haven't, and he has to pay double, and we didn't, we're already being charged way more than anybody else I know for internet. And so we didn't want to deal with that.
Oh, yeah.
That's-
If you could, usually if you could talk to them, then they can make a fix. But if they're jerks, then you're out of luck.
Yeah, no, they're jerks. We called recently and they were like, oh yeah, there's something wrong with the line, but you know, like with the line to our particular street. And they were like, we'll fix it when we fix it.
So that's a
Thank
huge
you.
problem that musicians all over are facing right now.
Yes.
Like, yeah, sometimes you're going to have the super sick setup with, you know, your 17 cameras and your great microphones and your tit internet. But most people aren't going to have those things. And that's the problem, is we have to seek out people like studios like Robot
Dog. Yeah, Robot Dog saved both of our
Even from my studio, my internet's not even that great. I have a super sweet setup, but my internet wrecks it, wrecks the live stream every time. And I think even with the live streams, a lot of musicians are going to find that we're going to have to start putting out more content, not just live streams. We're going to have to start dumping out single after single, no more records, because people are just going to keep wanting content. It's just going to be single after single after single after single. And along with live streams, if you can't pump them out with your shitty bandwidth, then you can definitely try to pump out content at least, because you're going to fall way behind other musicians if you can't get content out constantly.
Yeah, that's been a huge thing is making sure that, like, even if I can't live stream, that I have videos from a fancy studio, or that I have pictures or something that I can continue to push out there to stay top of mind on the time that, my internet is completely crappy. So that's, that content is king is totally going to be true as we move through and past this.
If I might say something about that. You could also consider embedding your videos in your live stream. So let's say your live stream is kind of funky, and you could produce, and say you're gonna live stream for, I don't know, half an hour. You could pre-produce, is that how you say it? A few videos and intersperse them with your live content, so they have a higher quality. And you're still live streaming, so you're saying basically, okay, here's something I did on such and such a day, or I did with a friend, or I happen to put some harmonies in, or whatever you're doing. But the point I'm trying to make is, if your live stream is not as good, if you add more videos to the actual live stream content itself, that kind of gives it more interest. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
One of the questions that I have is that, how are you making money from these live streams? I mean, with the Zoom kind of thing, are people?
Oh, how is Kui making money? Is that what you're asking me?
Anybody, you know, I'm just wondering, you know, I know that some people are doing this Venmo thing, and other people are, you know, having a virtual tip jar, but I want to know how that's working, and are there other ways that you actually make money from these live streams?
The times that I have charged, which I feel really uncomfortable about it, because it's just weird. Also, I'm getting paid for the two of them that I'm doing already anyway. But Fatty B, he did a DJ set on Friday nights. It's called the Boom Boom Zoom Room. People make requests, and he makes about $200, per show. So it is working. He has a little sign that he has the camera focused on that has his Venmo and his PayPal, and that's not a bad Friday night.
So we have a very different model than most musicians. And Kui's doing, if she's doing any live streaming, her live streams are strictly private, and she gets paid per hour for them. We also produce a video once a month that goes out to anywhere between 4 and a dozen places, and she charges for that as well. And so she's not doing any Venmo or Patreon or any of that. She's strictly doing private.
So
content.
are people signing up for that, or I'm just trying to figure out the way that it all works?
All right, like for example, yesterday she did a live stream at 10:30 in the morning. Tomorrow she does one at 1:30, they pay for that the same as if she was a live performer.
So the actual the senior center pays a fee for the stream.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Or the video. Some people just want the video, which is actually a better way to do it because, for example, if I'm making like 10 videos, I'm charging, or I'm sending 10 videos, I'm charging the same amount of money as if it was a performance, but I'm not really redoing the whole video. I'm just adding a front and a back to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so she does a combination is the best way to put it.
There's something I'd like to just bring up for just a quick second, since we're talking about money, is that for musicians like me and local scene musicians, half these venues weren't fucking paying us anyway.
It's true. It's
So,
true.
we have to rely on merch sales and online album listens. And I mean, with Spotify screwing everybody over with their pricing, it was always merch sales. So the whole argument with content is like, you can sell it if you want to, but people are going to listen to it on Spotify and you're going to make 0.002 cents anyway. Like, getting paid is sick, but for us small timers, we weren't making that much money to begin with. And this is actually like most of the time I would break even at shows, but now like I'm just spending ridiculous amounts of money to try and keep up with the dudes on Twitch who got, 1 million views, but they also have gaming computers and stuff like that, where I've got a, 14-year-old Mac. It's a huge, the money thing is a huge deal. And I think it is I think the music community as a whole is definitely going to start focusing on it a lot more when the small time musicians aren't making shit. They're like, at some point we're going to need to get paid for what we're doing.
Yeah, I've been, I always put a tip jar link in my shows and stuff. And I usually get something. I think I've had 2 shows where I haven't had any merch sales and no tips or anything. I usually get something, but it's nothing like what I would get at a live show. Also, if I have the same people showing up week after week, they're not going to buy stuff or tip me every week. Whereas if I was playing around here, there'd be different tourists every week at a live venue, or a different pay structure at a different gig. And to Kane's point, I definitely agree that those of us who are independent are really going to struggle when this is over, because independent venues are already struggling, and many of them are having to shut their doors completely. And then, is there going to be room for all of us when we're done? Are we going to get paid when we're done? I don't think that music should be given away for free all the time. We're working just like anybody else is working. This is a job. But my big concern is the long-term economic fallout with independent musicians and independent music venues. And how are we going to compete, as Kane said, with Garth Brooks? If Garth Brooks and Grace Potter are streaming the same night I am, where do you think people are going to put their attention? So that's where live music comes in. But if the venues are closed for COVID or are closed for good, Save Our Stages has been huge. And I've got a link for that in all of my social, because I think it's so important. I got a letter from Bernie the other day that was like, I'm on it. And I'm like, no, you're not. The email or the letter that he sent back was like, we're working on, the overarching small business package, which is true, but there's nothing specifically calling out like independent venues and what independent venues bring to our communities and stuff. So there's a lot that's kind of scary about what's happening right now for us independent small timers, for sure.
Well, I've been an entrepreneur all my life, so I kind of look at it a little differently. I certainly, as I said, I'm not a musician, but I happen to sleep with one for almost 49 years now. And a little joke. And I'm certainly, and as a talent buyer in that capacity, I'm certainly cognizant of the lousy pay that can happen. So I tend, if I'm booking for a venue, I tend to at least pay a reasonable rate, because I don't think it's fair that musicians should play in a venue that wants them to bring them business and then aren't willing to pay them. It's ridiculous. But I do think you have to. I have to look at this as an opportunity. I think at the end of this, I mean, if assuming there is an end to this pandemic sometime, we're going to see a lot of we're going to see a lot of restaurants closed. We're going to see a lot of stores and local businesses closed. But as with everything in the United States, we're going to see a lot of people, not me, but a lot of people will see this as an opportunity. And so these over the next few years, these places will fill again. They may have some of them may have new owners, and some of them may not. But I think, as far as live music is concerned, I think you should look at this more as a temporary situation that that hopefully will resolve itself. And if as all of you being musicians, you do know that the best place to book is the newest place, because they are much more optimistic than ones that have been in business for a while. So there's going to be a lot of that opportunity probably 2 years from now, when some of the storefronts that have been closed, and I don't, and I'm saying this matter of factly, I do consider it tragic. I do, because I know a lot of these people that are going out of business, but the reality is someone is going to take their place, and we're going to see a lot of new businesses. So you can take heart to that when this is all over, I think live music, if anything, people will appreciate it, maybe more.
Well, I think that the big question, Sal, is, are people going to go out?
Right.
That's the big question right now. Is, I mean, because all my gigs overseas are going to book again, next year. That's what they're saying. All the places that I was going to play, they said, well, Rick, we'll have you next year. But the thing is, we really don't know yet. First of all, are people going to go out and attend? We have 25 people at this point is the gathering number. Are people going to start gathering? I mean, it's very kind of interesting, because being involved with some of the demonstrations and stuff, you had tons of people out on the street. We don't know yet what that means either, because this is a virus, and we're really in the dark of what it's going to do, and it doesn't matter who we are or what we think. The virus has its own way of doing what it's going to do. Now, I'm just praying and hoping that that might not be the case, that we might not. I mean, we're getting already a lot of spikes in different places, but it's crazy. I mean, the whole country has been shut down, the whole country, everywhere. And and the idea that the only place that Garth Brooks could play was on a live stream, and that the Grand Ole Opry was going on with a skeleton crew, with no audience at all. And so everybody, what I'm hearing from all the people that I know, everybody's saying, okay, will people come out again? And when will they feel safe enough to come out in 100 people or 200, 300, type of venue? That's really something that we have to wait and see. And so that's why I agree that right now, that this live streaming is one of our best assets that we have, because we are reaching, I mean, I agree with you totally. I'm reaching hundreds of people every day on Facebook. I mean, having a new book out, I'm selling books. I mean, as I'm sitting here, the books are coming in, people are buying the books, So I think that the idea that we really have to understand that this is a big tool, and we have to learn how to use it well. And I don't think that any of us really have the total answer yet. but I think it's going to be revealed as time goes on, but it's not going to go away. Live streaming is here to stay. That's what I feel.
Yeah, I'm in the process of negotiating with UVM now to do a virtual dance party for the incoming students, because they're still not even sure how this is all going to work. So, and whether they're going to be in classrooms or just online. But as part of their 20 to 21 year or whatever, their dance party will be virtual. So it is here to stay. And again, it may be one of those things where when things open all up and the virus is gone, again, those folks that can't show up to those shows for whatever reason will be able to attend in their own ways. And so a mix of both.
Well, the cool thing is that it's giving us opportunities that we never had.
Right.
You know, I mean, all these festivals that I was supposed to play at were doing virtual festivals. So the Clearwater Festival, we all, you know, made videos. The Woody Guthrie Festival, we all made videos. I did a thing over in Sweden where everybody made, you know, virtual. Right now, this virtual festival, virtual concerts, virtual open mics has some real opportunities to it. We're getting to hear music we never heard before. We're getting to contact people that we wouldn't have had that opportunity, you know? So we can now, instead of just thinking of doing what we do just here, that we can really start opening our minds to the idea that it's no longer about just being here. We can be all over the world. Right. And the better that we learn how to use this technology, I think it's going to benefit all of us.
Right, I agree. Being that there's no like gay pride festivals this year, etc. I do a party every Saturday, what I talked about a little bit earlier for Pride Center, Vermont. And a group from the Hudson Valley of Jersey saw the show. It's LGBTQ friendly show. And they said, well, we love what you do. We love the production. Can we piggyback on this and make it a 2-state gay pride virtual party? So that's happening on the 27th of this month. And so now we're bringing 2 states together that would not have even thought about having a party together. So I think that's really cool. And I think you're right, Rick. It's thinking outside the box and figuring out this new gift we've been given.
One of the things that I've done to help like bring stuff together is like what goes with music, booze, right? So I've been partnering with like local breweries, local bars and stuff, and doing takeovers of their pages or Instagram lives with them. So like one brewery was super cool. Like I swung down, did the can pickup, like we picked which beers we were going to drink. And so we did a beer tasting in between the songs and talked about their beer, talked about my music. And so that's been really fun. So yeah, like you said, getting creative, figuring out different ways to bring people together. How can you share your audience with, you know, reach other people who may want to be part of your audience? Another thing is like friends of mine in New York, every Thursday they host a little songwriters in the round, and they bring different songwriters that they know of each week to do a couple songs, and again, sharing those audiences and connecting with people. That's been pretty cool because, you know, again, like Rick, you know, I was supposed to be on tour right now too. And so instead of going on like real tour, I'm going on virtual tour from like this brewery to that songwriters in the round. And so, yeah, trying to do my best to make the best of this situation and making those connections so that when this is over, hopefully, you know, I can give everybody a really big hug and bring everyone together in the same room, and it'll be awesome. But yeah, it's definitely a learning curve, and you know, we're creative people, we're artists, right? So figuring out how we can, I don't know, tie together with other people to get everybody through this.
And we should definitely thank Big Heavy World for giving us this opportunity to share.
Yes.
Because I think that one of the things that as you travel all over the country, you realize that there's not a lot of musical communities that are like here in Vermont, where musicians do have a chance to get together and share, and are willing to share in such an open way, share contacts, and share gigs sometimes that we used to do. I travel all over the world, so I know that it's true. And a lot of the goodness that has happened is because of Big Heavy World, and Jim Lockridge has been always there for us. So I want to thank you, Jim.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. It's been awesome to be able to connect with other musicians. Vermont has been very friendly to me as a musician since I've been here. And so, yeah, been awesome.
So the one thing I would like to say is I'm retired. I just turned 70, so I've joined the 7 Decades Club. And if you guys have any technical issues, or if you just want to figure out the software or the streaming problems, if I don't know it, I'll do a deep dive and figure it out for you. So the way it's easy to figure out how, without giving you my phone number, which I'll gladly do, just look under kuisings.com and you'll find my contact info there. So like I said, you guys have any issues or you just want to say, what do you think of this? I'd be glad to look into it, or if I don't know. And I'm always looking for cheap solutions. It's not necessarily the most expensive. And the Chinese are weird like that. I was mentioning a capture card that you use for these cameras that, you know, like mirrorless cameras or DSLRs to make them streaming cameras. And the hot capture card happens to be made by Camlink, and it used to sell for $125, but since the pandemic, they've been scalping them for $300 on eBay. And you sort of need that as a connection to get into your computer. But the Chinese just came out with this $14.95 capture card. And I bought one. I bought one saying, well, it's $15. The worst that can happen is I throw it out. And it actually works really well. And so, you know, there's lots of different solutions that you can make. And if you guys ever want to discuss that, I'll be glad to. Anyways, that's it. And with that said, I have to go on to the next thing. So you guys take care.
Yep,
Yeah, thank you all. I
Thank
think it's a
you.
perfect ending, having a conversation about collaboration. So I want to thank all of you for coming and all of our viewers on Facebook and on Zoom.
Yay.
Hey.
I am a big advocate for, you know, helping each other and coming together as a community, especially in hard times. So thank you all again. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
It was great to
Have a
talk
good
to all
night.
of you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye, folks.